Okay, good morning. We're on Tav Mem Tet. Okay. Din Chametz shenimtza b'chanut Yisrael. So you have a Jewish store, or it's going to be the opposite, and workers are not Jewish. So Aleph, what happens? Chanut shel Yisrael u'malai shel Yisrael. So the store is owned by a Jew, and we're assuming that some of the ingredients, some of the merchandise, perush haschor ochlei chanut. So everything belongs to the Jew, and there's part of the merchandise is chametz. Upoalim anichnasim l'sham einam Yehudim. But the ones who are working in there and they're having their lunch over there or their snacks over there are non-Jews. So what happens when chametz shenimtza sham achar Pesach asor bahana? So you find chametz there, really it's during or right after Pesach. If it's going to be a number of days after Pesach, it's unclear exactly what the limit is, but if it's going to be after Pesach, let's say in a couple days maybe, so then you would just assume that this is fresh chametz from after Pesach, that the Mishnah Berurah points out. So we're saying it's right after Pesach, and you find chametz there. So who does it belong to? So since the kavua, the permanent residence, the stationary, is the store owner, so therefore we assume that the chametz belongs to the store, and therefore it's the case is it belonged to a Jew, so therefore it's aser to have after Pesach. Chanut shel eino Yehudi, u'malai shel eino Yehudi. But if the store is non-Jewish, right, and the merchandise is all of the ingredients, everything belongs to the non-Jew. Upoalim anichnasim l'sham Yisrael, right, because there's a whole discussion about being kavua versus movable. So anyway, so since the workers are bringing in food and they're Jewish, so who does it go by? It's the same principle. When you have to choose between the two, you go whoever is kavua. Chametz nimtza sham mutar afilu ba'achila. So since the stationary is non-Jewish, the owner and the merchandise, so therefore you say that everything we assume, lahalacha, everything could be eaten after Pesach. Kachi girsas Rashi v'Rabbeinu Hai, aval Rabbeinu Chananel gores behefech. But Rabbeinu Chananel actually holds the halacha is the opposite. Anyways, Zikr halacha is like what we read, the first opinions. Okay. And obviously it kind of depends on the exact case, the scenario and what's likely for specific cases. Okay, this is just the general rule. Tav nun. Now, what happens when Din Yisrael Vein Yehudi Sheish Lem Shutvos? They are partners with an oven. The way it used to be was a person would use someone else's oven, and it was primarily, if not only, used for baking chametz. And when you rented it out to somebody, they would often pay you in the item that they baked. Like if they were to bake 10 rolls, just throwing out a number, not that I know, but let's say you bake 10 rolls, you rent it out, and then how you get paid for it, he gives you one of those rolls. Okay, so now let's read. Aleph. Yisrael shalaveh kikar mechavera kodem Pesach. So Yisrael we're not into the case of the tanur yet, we'll get there, sorry. A Yisrael that lends a roll of bread to another Jew before Pesach, what happens? Sarich lefaro achar Pesach v'yesh bo mishum gazel im eino pora'o. So you ended up lending a loaf of bread a roll of bread to a Jew, and then Pesach sets in. And this is even if you gave it to him right before Pesach. So monetarily the way it works is since he gave you a loaf of bread, now that's yours. He lent it to you. He didn't just he didn't give it to you as a shomer to watch. He gave it to you. So you were supposed to eat it, use it, whatever, sell it, do what you need to do with it, and then you're going to be paying him back after Pesach. But you didn't. So really, if it would have been during the week, I guess you could have given it back. If I don't know, whatever the deal was. If it's frozen, who knows? But anyways, so here the case is you when Pesach is over, you still owe him for that kikar, because he lent it to you, he didn't give it to you. And the fact that it became usher to eat because Pesach set in, and you had to destroy it, or it became useless, you still have to pay him back that amount after Pesach from your pocket. You have to bake him a new one, buy him a new one, give him money, something along those lines.
You can't say
Right. You can't say that was yours and you lost it, because that's not the case. The case was he lent you a loaf of bread for you to use it and then to return him a different one later. Okay. What happens if a Jew lends a loaf of bread to a non-Jew before Pesach? So then the non-Jew still has to pay you back, but the question is, can he pay you back with that exact same chametz? So there's two opinions. One is, and that's the Orach Chaim, that you're allowed to. The Mishnah Berurah is actually a machmer. It's more of a machloket among the Ashkenazi poskim. L'maisa, what to do? Different opinions. Because if you're giving him that exact same chametz, it looks as if it's the same chametz. And it looks like you're returning what he saved for you. And I think it's only a din of gzera, but it's, you can call it a gzera, but it's more of a chomer de Pesach, I think. Okay. Mishnah Berurah also gets into a drop of ribis over here. He points out that whenever you lend an item to somebody, let's say you lend a roll to somebody, and you want to return another roll in return, so he says you're allowed to. Even if one roll is going to end up being bigger, the second one will be bigger than the first one, there's no issue of ribis. Because people aren't makbid. People don't care. They want their roll back. Right? You lend a roll, you want a roll back. When you lend something to a neighbor, you want your neighbors to give it back to you. But if it's a drop bigger than it before, we don't call that ribis, because no one's counting or weighing it and cares exactly what size it is. So since it's such a small amount and no one cares about it, that's not in the Isser Derabanan of ribis of Se'ah B'Se'ah. Okay. Let's do Seif Bet. Yisrael shemakabel be'en Yehudi beribit kikarot b'chol shavua. Let's say the deal is you lent money to a non-Jew, and the deal is you get ribis from him, and you're allowed to, because it's from a non-Jew. And he pays you every single week while you're giving him for the reward, the payment, whatever, the interest for lending him money. While he's lending the money, he has to provide you every single week. Let's say it's every Tuesday, a roll of bread, or lots of rolls of bread, whatever the deal is. So then Yomar lo kod. So before Pesach, now let's say it comes out during the year, that on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, when he's going to pay you the kikar that he owes you, this loaf of bread, because he pays you in bread, not money, it comes out to be during Pesach. So he can't pay you, because if he bakes bread for you during Pesach and has in mind that that's going to be for you, then it's as if, we look at it as if you got it and you owned it on Pesach, even if he delivers it to you after Pesach. So the only way to collect it is Yomar lo kodem Pesach, sheiten lo b'shavua shel Pesach kemar chol malot. You have to specify. It's true. Normally the deal is you must give me a baked loaf of bread, right? A baked loaf of bread is worth more than raw flour. That's what the deal was. But he says you have to specify to him that this week of Pesach, I don't want you to give me chametz. It has to be raw ingredients that it's still kosher le Pesach, or money. And so, kevan shehitna imokach, since you made that stipulation before Pesach, some say it has to be even earlier when you made the original deal, but we'll go with this. It's right before. At least you told them right before Pesach. Alfa pi she'achar haPesach notin lo kikarot chametz. Even if he showed up even if he made you kikarot on Pesach and he saved them for you and he gave it to you after Pesach, it's okay. Because Chalifei HaKemach v'ma'oten v'shari. Because you stipulated, you told him you didn't want chametz, you specified, he baked it on his own will. And now that he shows up after Pesach, he's only chayav you money. And the fact that he gave you rolls instead, that was his choice, that was his business, and therefore it's no problem. Gimel. Yisrael b'nei Yehudi sheish lahem tanur b'shutfut. So now let's say you have an oven, and the two of you a Jew and a non-Jew are partners, shutafim, you both own it together. So then what are you supposed to do? You want to rent out this oven, and it's going to be used on Pesach. And the assumption is you're renting it to a non-Jew, and he's going to be baking with it bread. And how does he pay you back? With bread. So Omer le'eni Yehudi kodem Pesach. So you have to tell your partner, hey, listen, I don't want to be part of getting paid in Chametz on Pesach. So what do? You tell him, Tola tashel Pesach, v'ani tola charkach. So there's a couple different, so he says, let me just translate it. Take for yourself during Pesach, right? We're renting it out on Pesach to a non-Jew who's baking Chametz. And he says, you take the bread or the profit that comes out of it during Pesach, and then after Pesach, I'm going to take some profit in cash. Okay? So there's a couple different explanations how to understand this. Maybe we'll try and say a couple. It does get a little bit tedious, or there's a bit of a machloket how to follow it. The Mishnah Berurah just says, you know what, to avoid the issues of exactly how to do it the best way, the best thing that many Achronim point out is don't make such a complicated deal. Just rent out the whole tanur from the get-go. Before Pesach, you have a partner, you say, here, give me, $100, $1,000, whatever the deal is. This is your tanur, whatever profit you make. Whatever profit you don't make, and it's your problem. And therefore you rented it out, and there's no issue whatsoever. So that's the cleanest, best way to avoid issues. Okay. Very good. Similar to selling things for Shabbos, okay? When you're partners. So here, but anyways, what is the Shulchan Aruch saying? Saying you don't have to sell it, and you can still profit, because if you specify, you're telling him, I don't want to get paid in bread for this week. I only want to get paid in money. Now, for you and the non-Jew who's going to be using it, you'd rather make the deal with bread. That's your problem. So go ahead. You word it. You deal it how you want. And then I'll get my share after Pesach in cash. And that's as if you stipulated that you really don't want to rent it out on the condition of making bread. You really want to just rent it out like we normally do, right? Normally, as far as I know nowadays, you rent things out and you get money for it. So that's really what you're trying to tell him.
So and you can't rent it out for Pesach and say, I'll take my share in bread after Pesach. It has to be cash.
Right, it has to be cash. You can't specify that I'm going to get bread later, and right, that's correct. Okay. Another option is you basically tell him. Another version is you tell him basically you're going to make the profit of the week of Pesach, and I'm going to make the profit a week after Pesach. That's another possibility. Okay, let's get to Daled. Yisrael shahaya lo tanur ve'af bo eino Yehudi chametz bePesach. Okay, so now a Jew owns the entire tanur for himself, and a non-Jew came and he baked on it with it chametz. Afilu ma'ot asur lekabel bischaro. So you're not allowed to get paid for it, because it's called getting hana from Yisurei hana. Mistakar b'Yisurei hana. The Havalei mistakar b'Yisurei hana. Sorry, it's right there. Ve'im kibel kvar hamot mutar lehanos mehem. So normally, so you own it, and the purpose of a tanur is to make chametz, and you rented it out for him for the purpose of chametz, and now, and the way he pays you is in chametz. So now he owes you, your mamash getting hana from the chametz that he made. It's not your chametz, it's not an isur deraisa, but you're indirectly getting benefit by the fact that this non-Jew made chametz, right? He never gave you the chametz on Pesach. So since the normal deal is you get paid in chametz, and now afterwards you can't get paid after Pesach in chametz. You can't even get paid in cash after Pesach, because the amount of cash that you're getting is for the chametz that you deserve, because you didn't rent it out the way that it's normally going to be, well, we're going to see in Hay also. The proper way to do it. So right. And then he just points out that getting money for the now in this case to get money after Pesach for the chametz that you deserve because you rented it out to him, lechatchila, that's asur to take. But he says once you took it already, Chazal, we're only talking about Nisr Darabanan over here. Once you took it already, right, because you never own the chametz. So therefore it's only Nisr Darabanan because it looks like you're getting hana from chametz. So therefore, but it was never yours. You're not mamash getting hana from chametz. So now after the fact, if you pocketed the money, if he already paid you, you don't have to give it back. You can keep it, you can use it, you can do whatever you want with that money. The b'di'evid, if you get money from this indirect benefit of chametz, then you're allowed to keep it, you're allowed to use it. The only time Chazal were machmer for even after the fact was by Yain Nesech, because of the Chumrah de Avodah Zarah. But on this issue, there's no Chumrah de Pesach, or the Chametz. Okay. Hey, so how do you do it in a permissible way? Yesh mi shematir, which is the halacha. Lahas, one is allowed to. Lahaskir tanur lein Yehudi. How do you rent out an oven to a non-Jew? You tell him, al menat sheofeh bo matzah. I'm only renting it out to you, that you can use it to make matzah. And if he decides to make chametz with it, that's his choice. He is allowed to. The non-Jew can do what he wants. It's not an isser in Dinei Mamanas over here. It was just that was just your tanai, so that it's kosher for you as a Jew. But okay, so anyways, he's allowed to bake his own matzah if he doesn't want to listen to you. There's no geneva over here, and then he has to pay you afterwards, right? That's, of course he has to pay you. But you can't get paid, the Magen Avraham points out, from the bread itself that he's baking. That's too much similar to getting hana from chametz. Okay. So, bottom line, if you want to rent it out, you can rent it out if you stipulate, but I don't want you to use it for chametz, and he pay.
You just have to say it's for baking matzah.
Yeah, this is.
You don't have to say you're not allowed to make chametz.
Right. You don't say you're not allowed to make chametz. That was my, okay. If I said that, I misspoke. You just have to tell him, I'm renting it out to you, really for the purposes of only making matzah. How the non-Jew is going to know how to make matzah, I don't know, but that's not the story. But you rent it out to him and you tell him that that's for matzah, and then you're okay. The other way to do it is you just rent it out to him. I think this is how we normally think or do it. You just rent it out to him. You're saying, how many days you want it for? Pay me whatever per day, cash, and I'm not renting it out. I'm not getting paid based on every roll that you're baking, but I'm getting paid based on the time, and then you do with it what you please during that time. So either way, it's okay. And the Mishnah Berurah has a big cool over here. He says, well, let me finish reading and then I'll tell you the Mishnah Berurah. And you're allowed to rent out a house and not talk about chametz. And even though he uses it for chametz, it's not a problem, right? That's too far removed. There's no issue of that. Okay, and the Mishnah Berurah points out even a bigger kula that if you rent it, many say the only time you have to make the stipulation that it's al menat for matzah is when you rent out a tanur, is if you do it on Pesach or Erev Pesach. Because then it looks really bad, because it's, you know that the tanur is for bread, and you know he's going to make bread with it, and you know he's going to pay you with bread. So that's when it looks really bad. But if you do it, the day before, some say even in the morning, it wouldn't be a problem. And then he says, but some are machmer for the 30 days before. Okay. Okay. Vav. You're allowed to tell your slave, right? You owe him, you're responsible to feed him. You're allowed to say, go take some money and go buy what you want with it. Right? Because you're not buying chametz, you're just giving him some money. And now the goy can do what he wants on his own. Talking about a goyish of it. Even though you know he's going to go buy chametz with the food. with the money you just gave him. Because he took the money. You're done. He can do whatever he wants with his money afterwards. I think we're talking about a goy. Because an Eved Kanani is chayav and mitzvahs.
You could say Oveid.
Yeah, a worker. I don't think so. I don't think it's possible to be an Eved Kanani.
It just has to do with whether you're required to
An Eved Kanani is chayav in all mitzvahs.
It depends on whether you're required to give him lunch. Right? If you're required to feed him, if it's part of your deal.
Right. Any employee that you're chayav to feed. That's a non-Jew. There you go. Alpha Pishe Yodea Sheyikneh. Right. Aval. Lo Yomar Lo Tzei. Don't tell him, go ve'echol v'ani pareya. Go, you can't tell him, go get chametz to eat, or go get food and you know he's going to for sure buy a sandwich, and then you're going to pay for it. Because that's as if you are buying, it's as if you're buying the chametz. V'yesh matirin gam bazeh, and some say even this case is 100% mutter. Ela in kein hiktim dinar al shanasa v'natan biyad. The second opinion says it's as long as you're not mamish buying the bread for him, it's mutter. Even though you.
What's hiktim dinar?
So when is it aser? Even according to the Yesh Matirin, is if you go to the storekeeper and you say, here's prepaying, or I'm giving you a credit card, and at the same time that he takes the chametz, you're paying for it. Because it's as if you're actually buying him the chametz, and you're not allowed to buy chametz on Pesach. O shenasa v'natan biyad, that's when you actually walk into the store for the goy, and you buy the chametz and hand it to him, for the employee. There is a discussion, I don't want to get too involved, but there is a discussion the Mishnah Berurah points out with Halchos Yoredea that it depends. It could be that it's mutter. It very well could be that it's mutter if you give money, not a credit card, but you actually give money ahead of time to the storekeeper, and you say, whatever, I'm giving you $1,000, $100. You owe me. And then the guy can come take what he wants. Because now the non-Jew, the storekeeper already has the money, took the money, could do whatever he wants with the money, and now he's just paying back. But it's not the same. It's not the same problem.
That sounds exactly what's usher as hiktim, according to the Mishnah said. That's exactly what's usher.
So it depends how you learn. The Shach learns like that, but the Magen Avraham, Shulchan Aruch, Stam probably says that it's only when you give him the money and as a pikadon. And then when the non-Jew comes into the store and takes the bread, it's as if you're mamish paying at that time. That's the only time, according to the Yesh Matirim, that's the only time would be asa. Okay, so two opinions, fine. Okay, so that's the best thing to do, is just give him your $10 or whatever, and saying it's yours, or whatever you have to pay for lunch. I don't know, nowadays it might be 20. So, anyways, whatever it is. Haga. Ve'asur liknot chametz la'ena Yehudi bePesach afil motav sh'la'ena Yehudi. You're not allowed to even go into a store with money that belongs to a goy and buy chametz for the goy. So you never owned it, and you never, now, Mikar Din, if when you did it, you said, for sure this is not mine, it's not my money, it's not my chametz, I'm never buying it, so Mikar Din, it would be okay, because you're never owning chametz. But, it's certainly on a level of the Rabbanan Asr to do that, for a number of reasons. You might come to eat it, you might want to make sure that nothing happens to it, and you care about it, and you're doing him a favor, and it looks good for you, and there's also a chashash of maybe it's ein shlichus la'akum, and therefore maybe you are buying it. Okay. Anyways, for a number of reasons, you don't do it. That maybe there is, no, if there's no shlichut, then when you buying it, you're actually buying it, and it's yours. If there would be shlichut, then it never passes through you, it's always his, and it wouldn't be a problem. Anyway, whatever, however you want to learn. There are reasons not where it's Asr Darabanan. Anyways, and if you did it, b'diavad, you're allowed to eat it after Pesach, because technically it never was yours, and midaraisa there is no problem. Okay. You can't go on Pesach and tell a goy to buy something for you on Pesach, Chametz for you on Pesach, and only to give it to you later. In other words, you can't go to a goy, say, take your own money and buy something on Pesach, buy Chametz on Pesach, and I'll get it from you after Pesach. Right? Because of either a chumrah, or maybe in this case we are choshes, there is shlichut, and therefore he's doing it for you. Okay. So anyways, Asur Darabanan at least. Zayin, one more. Asur lahaskir kli in Yehudi b'chametz b'Pesach kadei sheyavashel bo chametz. You're not allowed to rent out a kli that a goy is going to use to cook with it chametz. One of the reasons is because you are getting some benefit, because it would be bad for the pot to put it on the fire if there would be no chametz in there. Okay. Anyways, it could be it's a chumrah, but okay. Aval maskir lo chamor lahavi alav chametz. But you are allowed to rent out a donkey, or a car, even though you know he's going to be using it for chametz. It could be, Mishnah Berurah points out, if you specify it's going to be for chametz, then it could be it's a problem. But if it's only you don't specify, you just say stam. So by a chamor or a car, then it's not a problem, even though you know he's going to use it for chametz. Shat Shulchan Aruch, and according to the Tur, even if you, and the Beis Yosef, even if you specify he's going to use it for chametz, it's still not a problem, because there is no gzera, on a kli, it's always used for cooking chametz. So therefore the Chazal made a gzera like that. It's a chumrah, right? This whole halacha. But by a chamor, it's not always used for chametz. A chamor is used to travel any kind of merchandise, for people, whatever. So therefore, they didn't make this chumrah. Haga. Let's continue reading. Haga. I have to think. V'yesh matirin lahachem chamin b'kli chametz v'lerchotz behen v'chen sharat. You're allowed to take any kli of chametz, right? Your kelim of chametz during the year, and you are 100% allowed to heat up water in them and use them. If it's not for eating, if it's just to bathe with them, it's to wash the floor, wash the windows, whatever you want to do with them, because you're getting no benefit from the blias of chametz that are coming out into the water, because you're not using it for food. And so therefore there'd be no problem. Okay. We'll stop.